Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Optimize Product Data Management, PTC Windchill PLM or SolidWorks PDM Professional, hosted by PTC and Barry Waymiller Design Group. My name is Scott Cargill, Director at Barry Waymiller Design Group, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I would like to introduce our presenters. With us today are William Fricks, Partner at Barry Waymiller Design Group. William leads a global multicultural team of manufacturing and IT consultants who deliver digital transformation initiatives through new manufacturing and engineering strategies, cultural change, and process digitization. William has over 25 years of experience providing manufacturing innovations spanning multiple industries, including life sciences, industrial machinery and equipment, food and beverage, and consumer products. Also with us today is Cody Wiltrout, Virtual Application Engineer at PTC. Cody is a graduate from Penn State University. He has been with PTC for 3 years and specializes in Creo and Windchill. Located near Pittsburgh, Cody works with the Virtual Center of Excellence within PTC as a virtual application engineer whose team supports virtual demonstrations. We're going to take a different approach today. Rather than showing you a series of slides with 2 columns of features and lots of checkboxes, we're going to take advantage of our demo environments to highlight some of the ways that a PLM, in this case Windchill, goes beyond core PDM functionality. Then we'll address some of the common concerns our clients have when considering whether to implement a PDM or a PLM. We will have a Q&A session at the end of our presentation. However, at any time during the webinar, you can submit your question in the Q&A text box located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And now, I would like to introduce you to William, who will kick off our discussion.
Hey, thanks, Scott. First, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Many users new to product lifecycle management struggle with the decision between PDM and PLM. Maybe you're there now. Our goal is that at the end of this webinar, you have a better understanding of the similarities and differences between a PDM and a PLM so you can make the right choice for your firm. Before we get started with the comparison, I'd like to introduce Barry Waymiller to you. Founded in 1885 as the world's first maker of inline bottle pasteurizers, Barry Waymiller has grown to one of the world's largest providers of packaging automation with annual sales over $3 billion. As a point of reference, when I started with the firm 17 years ago, we just crossed over $1 billion in revenue. Our growth is a result of strong organic initiatives, over 100 acquisitions, and most importantly, our people. If you get the chance, I highly recommend you Google Bob Chapman, the man you see in the lower left corner. Bob and the over 12,000 team members of Barry Waymiller have created a unique culture. So unique, in fact, that the Harvard Business School teaches emerging business leaders how Barry Waymiller's truly human leadership model can positively impact lives while building successful companies. Design Group is the engineering, IT consulting, and technical services division of the Barry Waymiller companies. True to our heritage, Design Group is focused on manufacturing. Our 1,500 professionals worldwide bring extensive industry experience to every project. Our client list ranges from some of the best known industrial equipment, electronic, consumer product, and life science brands in the world to startups that have the next great product. And many of Design Group's over 400 active clients are using product lifecycle management solutions as their digital foundation. As a manufacturer ourselves, we know what it takes to make world-class products. And with 45 locations in the US, we probably have an office near you. Our website address is on the bottom of the slide. So today, as we look at the differences between a PDM and a PLM, we've selected 2 strong products, SolidWorks PDM Pro and PTC Windchill PLM. Why these 2? Both PTC and Dassault Systems are leaders in the design automation space, but don't just take our word for it. Frost & Sullivan, Forrester, and Quadrant all rank products from Dassault and PTC as some of the best on the market today. As you consider SolidWorks PDM Pro and PTC Windchill PLM, it's important to note that at their core, every PLM has a PDM. As we meet with companies, we point out that if you're a candidate for SolidWorks Pro PDM, then you're also a candidate for Windchill PLM. We often get strange looks until we explain that a PDM manages product data and access to it throughout the product lifecycle. A PLM does exactly the same thing and much more. A PLM manages the processes and the systems that are responsible for product development. To give you an example, a Windchill PLM can start an engineering change order based on a consumer complaint, even though that consumer complaint is logged and processed in a separate enterprise system. Anyone researching the response to the complaint, say, for example, the FDA, can query the Windchill PLM to see all the engineering and quality documentations, drawings, and even the data that correspond to the resolution of the complaint. Because a PLM can deliver the core functionality of a PDM, to compare the two, let's explore some of the things that a PLM can do above and beyond a base PDM. So, Cody, are you ready to show us some ways that a PLM builds on the capabilities of a PDM? And also, can you spend some time showing us how easy it is to work with SolidWorks files in a Windchill PLM?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Thanks for the opportunity and nice to meet everyone on the line. So for today, the demo topics that I'm going to be going through is we'll first look at how Windchill can handle SolidWorks data. Then we'll see how it can manage your bill of materials for you and really give you great flexibility with that, and move from there into how it does the change management process. And we will then finish off with navigate around the lightweight user interface for downstream users to be able to interact from, and talk a little bit about how we can migrate to PLM from PDM. Starting off with the Workgroup Manager for SolidWorks, this is going to embed directly into SolidWorks. So you will be able to work just like you normally would in SolidWorks with a new toolbar that's going to allow you to have full revision and version control to secure that data for you. But it's also going to give you the ability to take other actions from inside of SolidWorks to push things into Windchill. So a lot of capability there and a lot of flexibility. It's also going to alert you as you use it as to if there's any problems or when things have been checked in, checked out, uploaded, and changed. So let's take a look at how Windchill actually manages this. Starting off, we're going to be working today with this foot plate that we have here. And the first thing that I'll note is on the details page inside of Windchill, you can see that we have some different information. We have what we would call attributes, so data describing this part. And we have this nice visualization here. If we select on the visualization, it's going to open up in our viewing tool. And this can open up a lot of different types of CAD information. And this is really meant for users who are not CAD users themselves, but want to be able to interrogate this information. So with this tool, then you could do things like take measurements, diameters, distances, lengths. You can do sections. You can also just do general markups as well as be able to explore the part or assembly, pull it apart, rotate it around, move it. In our case, what I want to do is say that we have a problem or a change that needs to occur. We want to change the size of this foot pad. So I can come in and just leave a note that says, hey, here's what we need to change. Here's exactly maybe the size that I would want you to change it to. And that's going to stick in 3D to that spot. So it recognizes where that is. Even if you'd rotate the part, it knows to stay there. And with that, then we can save this annotation set back into Windchill, and whoever the designer would be could review this and start doing their work from there. So to that point, assuming that right now I'm someone who would not be a designer who does not have SolidWorks in this case, I take that and I make that note and say send a task to someone or make it part of a change process that we need to update this. And when I do that, I can take a look at the Where Used tab to see everywhere that this object is used in the system. This gives me high-level visibility to be able to say, what will be the downstream impacts of this? What all will this affect when we continue to move on? Now, one thing that I want to note, just as we've been moving around here inside of Windchill, you can see that this is a web browser-based tool, so you can really use this from anywhere and you don't have to install anything. You just go on to whatever web browser you prefer and you can sign in and authenticate in to Windchill and be able to access your information. To that same idea, Windchill offers a lot of flexibility in how you want to deploy it as well, giving you options in terms of if you would want to make it on cloud or on premise. And we range all the way from full SaaS to allowing you to manage it. So really whatever fits best for your needs and what you want to do, we're happy to support. So now that we see that this isn't going to have an impact on anything but that steering column, I'm going to go over to SolidWorks. So now assuming I was signed in as a different user, even though we're doing this as the same user, we could say that someone has reviewed that visualization and they know that they need to make a change to this CAD part. Well, from SolidWorks, I can browse into my structures in Windchill, find the object that I'm looking for, and easily open it up directly from here. So I don't even necessarily have to go into Windchill to be able to open parts up, check them in, check them out. I can do that all entirely from the SolidWorks user interface if I would choose to. Now in our case here, once we have this opened up in SolidWorks, we see that we have our PTC Windchill tab. So this gives us that ability to check out, do check-ins, if you wanted to do a promotion request or something like that. And it's going to give you those alerts to tell you whether or not that's been successful. But once I'm inside of SolidWorks and I have everything checked out, really this is going to be no different from how I would work normally. It's not really going to affect your design. You're just going to have a new tool to be able to manage that and to be able to keep that iteration version control. Now, of course, with the check and check out, that might change slightly from if you didn't have any PLM or PDM system before at all, just so that you have revision and version control and people aren't overwriting each other. But overall, the functionality from SolidWorks is going to maintain the same. I'm going to go ahead and change the appearance on this foot plate to make it blue so that you'll see when we check this back in, the visualizations inside of Windchill can automatically update as well. So you can have it set to do that for you. This also allows you to push information from SolidWorks into Windchill or from Windchill into SolidWorks. So right now we have these properties that we could change, and these could go into Windchill to be stored as attributes, so that descriptive data, whether that be a general description, a material, or something else. But you can also bring information from Windchill down into SolidWorks. So if I wanted to, if I had a drawing, for example, I could put a column in that drawing and then insert values from Windchill. So we would be able to do something like, say, maybe what state is it in? Are these release components in work? Something like that. But you have the ability to push information bidirectionally based off of whatever it is that you're doing. So now that we've updated this part, let's go ahead and check this in. So we're just going to say custom check-in. And when we do that, it's going to recognize the object and we can finish this check-in. Now, one thing I do want to note here is that we have this set up to automatically associate to WT parts. For any of you who have not used WT parts before or are new to Windchill, you can think of a WT part almost as a bucket. It's essentially a bucket to help store and associate information. When you check a SolidWorks object into Windchill, you put it in that WT part, and then you could put other things in there too, like the drawing that goes with it, documentation that talks about it, maybe analysis information, really whatever it is. And that WT part is going to create the association then between all of those objects so that you can see how they're related. So if you hear me talk about WT parts throughout the demonstration, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to a CAD part necessarily. So we'll finish this and go ahead and check this in. And once it's checked in, you can see as it was checked out, the visualization disappears because it's being updated. But if we come back to our home screen and refresh this, then we can see that updated visualization and updated information. So we'll come back in to look at that foot plate, and we can see that we have that new visualization. We also have that description that we added and the materials being listed as well. In the content, we have that visualization that was automatically created at the bottom. We also had it automatically create an IGES file. So you can have publishers in Windchill that will publish neutral file formats and associate them to those objects as well, so that you don't have to do that manually, but that gives you the option to still have those if you need them and share them off. So from that idea, now that I have changed this foot plate, maybe I'm happy with that, I'm now going to go ahead and transition over to another assembly that has this footplate in it, and I'm going to release this, essentially say that this is ready to go out to the manufacturing team.
Hey, Cody, I'm going to jump in just for a minute and remind everybody that we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of today's demo. And again, you can enter your question into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions when Cody and William are finished with their content delivery. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. All right, so now that we have this steering column that footplate goes under, we're just going to say that we want to take this from its current state and give it a promotion request to release it. Now, what's nice with this process is that because we have the association between all of those objects, we can have them all brought in automatically for this promotion. So right now we're seeing that we just have the individual assembly, but if I select on it and say collect objects, I can collect every object that's related to that part, or in this case, this CAD part. And with that, that could be other CAD data, it could be other objects that you associate, documents, whatever it is, but it allows you to very easily do this without having to manually go through to each object and try to promote them. Then we just set the target promotion state, and from there, we would release this. Now, this might have to be reviewed by someone, and of course, they can get a task to actually do that reviewing, and they will get those tasks on their home screen. So they actually have a table where those tasks will appear at, and then from those tasks appearing, they can then be able to push that forward into the next step in that process. And we'll look a little bit more at that as we get further into the change management today as well. But at a high level, that's really what the SolidWorks data management is. It allows you to integrate in directly with SolidWorks so that your users will have a very simple user interface to work from. Won't change the way that they design, but it will give you a lot of more control in terms of being able to relate objects, being able to manage it, create visualizations for other people in the enterprise to be able to see, and then get into some of the further capabilities that we'll be discussing next. So going off from that, then we can start getting into our bill of materials management. This is where we're able to create and manage our bill of materials, and that can start from the SolidWorks structure, or you can choose to restructure it some if you want. You can add in components that maybe you would not make in a CAD tool. It's again going to give you some of that visualization capability that we'll see, and really just gives you a lot of flexibility with managing your BOM, as well as being able to do exports that you might want to see. So we'll go ahead and take a look in Windchill at how that does this. So here in Windchill, we have our bill of materials. As I mentioned, we have our visualization here that we can use. So if I turn on the visualization, it's going to highlight our assembly that we're working with. So we're going to work with another part from that top car assembly. In this case, we're going to be working with a front wheel assembly here. And we can see that we not only have visualization, but we have cross highlighting. So if there's a part that I'm interested in, but I don't know what it's called, I can simply select on it here, and it's going to highlight it for me in the bill of materials. And the same works in reverse, where if I select something, it'll highlight it for me in this visualization wherever it is, allowing me to quickly identify what that part might be. Now, these gray gears here are the WT parts that I mentioned earlier for anyone who's unfamiliar with them. And to show you a little bit of what they're capable of, I'm just going to go ahead and expand out this entire bill of materials. And once I've expanded this out, I'm going to select all of the WT parts, and I'm going to say that I want to go ahead and show some information about them. Now, this related information can come in a lot of different forms. You can choose to bring things individually or just show all of the information. So I'm just going to bring all of that in here. And we're going to see that we have some documents, PCB board information, plant information. Here we have an assembly with a drawing and plant information, documentation, drawings, MathCAD analysis information, even multi-CAD if you wanted Creo and SolidWorks under the same part with WT part. you can do all of that and be able to manage all of that here very flexibly. And now you can see for some of these components, there might not be additional information really other than plant information. And that's fine. Not every part necessarily needs a ton of extra descriptive information, but if you do have it, it's nice to be able to show that and show those relations so that you can really have a bill of information even more than a bill of materials. Now, past just being able to manage those relationships, there's also some other functionality I want to touch on inside of the bill of materials. I did mention that we can edit the bill of materials, we can create new parts, add existing parts that already exist inside of Windchill, and to do that, I could just look up one that I know exists, maybe a label. So a label is not something that I'm going to be making in SolidWorks or any other CAD tool for that matter. But it is something that I want to make sure that when we get down to manufacturing, I'm going to have kept track of it, and I'm going to be able to make sure that it gets made, and we add it into our assembly. So for now, I'm just going to use a WT part as a placeholder to manage that. So here we have our barcode compliance icon and company logo that come in under that WT part. You can also do some filtering around different things like design bills versus manufacturing bills based off of state or even location. So you can do some for, if you have different manufacturing locations, do filters based off of what location it is, if there's some differences that need to be accounted for there. You can do reporting and generate up a single or multi-level report. And then you can also, of course, always save or export that, which will just generate it up for you very quickly. And you have the ability to export. So you can see we have quite a few. You can export a CSV, XML, PDF, whatever you want and is most useful for you. Be able to select from those and send that off to wherever it would go next. And of course, you can always set up integrations even with ERP systems to be able to send things like bill of materials directly over for there. Now, one last thing I want to note here is that we have the compare function. So the compare function allows you to compare two different versions of the history. So here we could say I have a baseline that I want to compare this latest version to. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to bring that baseline over, and I want to compare that to my current working version. What it's going to do is generate up two bill of materials. Everything that's blue shows that there's a difference. The left-hand side shows that there's a child difference under here. The right-hand column shows that there's just an attribute difference, so those two parts have changed. And the center column shows that there's no equivalent upstream object. I just added in that label, so it does not exist in the earlier version on the left-hand side. So that's really a lot of the bill of materials management and being able to edit and really just utilize some of the functionality there. This does, with Windchill, we don't care what type of CAD tool you're using, and you can be multi-CAD, and we're happy to help you build one strong bill of information that has not just CAD data, but really all of your product information so that it's easy for everyone to see. Now, once you have these types of objects, of course, you're going to have to iterate on them and make updates, and that's when we get into change management inside of Windchill. With Windchill, it gives you a pre-built change workflow that you can then configure. This is based off of best practices that PTC has generated, but of course we want to be able to be flexible to what your needs would be as well, so it's an easily configurable kind of interface for that. This also allows you to bring all of the parts or objects through the change process very quickly and easily because of those data associations. So now when you go through that change process, you don't have to worry about forgetting something because they're all going to be tied together. When you do use these processes, it's going to automatically generate out tasks to users, and they will get those tasks on their home screen and be able to work from there with them. So with that idea in mind, with this change process, let's go ahead and take a look at how that actually works inside of Windchill. So I'm going to start by just coming home to touch on something briefly here. So in the My Tasks table here, this is where you would receive those tasks, and you can access any of those from here and do whatever work it is that you would need to. Now, in terms of what we're going to be working with today, we're going to take a look at the brake disc from that assembly that we saw earlier. One other thing I do want to note here in our home table, since we have some objects here, as I've been making changes, anything that I make a change to, like I added that label, it checks that object out to me because I've made a change, and that's denoted by this yellow square at the blue triangle. And if there's a change out against an object, that exists here with this red triangle. And we do this so that you have clear visibility, enterprise visibility into saying, do I need to wait for this object to go through its change process before I use it for what I need it? Just be able to make an informed decision from that. When it comes to finding objects inside of Windchill, of course, you can always search for them, and you can search based off of part number, part name, or some of those attribute data that we mentioned earlier. So if you have a material assigned to something, say aluminum, you could search on aluminum and find any parts inside of Windchill that use that as their material. You also have the ability to quickly go back to anything you've been working with. So in my case, I have my brake disc here, so I'm going to come to it and then go to my changes tab. So again, we see we have this red triangle showing that this is going through a change process. Generally speaking, the way the change workflow works inside of Windchill, that best practice, is that you would start with a problem report, so an issue or variance, and that is going to be either internally or even if you get some customer feedback, put that into a problem report. That will then be reviewed either by an individual or multiple individuals who will say then, if this is a problem, let's push it through into a change request. Now you can have a full track and a fast track for those, and depending on how big the problem is, choose which one that you would want to go through. But once it gets to the change request, you're going to start looking at the actual problem and what needs to be addressed. Once it gets through this stage, it'll finish in the change notice, where we will determine what all of the tasks need to be done to actually implement this change. So if we take a look at some of these objects, we can see in the change request, you can have attachments like a PDF, or even a URL link to describe what's going on, but you can also use those annotations that we saw earlier. So we made one on the foot plate explaining that the pad on the foot plate needed to be changing sizes. In this case, we have one here that indicates that the outer brake disc is overheating and needs to be changed. This really gives you a great way to, as I mentioned earlier, put your intent and your design change intent into those so that whoever reviews this is clearly going to understand what's going on. As I also mentioned, because of these WT parts, we can see all of the affected objects, not just the CAD, some MathCAD analysis, some documentation. All of that's going to come in here so that you can easily push it all together through this smooth workflow. Lastly here, we have the affected end items. So the affected end items are essentially, you can think of as sellable items, products that you actually sell. And this just allows you, again, from a high level visibility standpoint, say, what impact might this have on our customers? Now, once we get into the actual change notice here, we can see kind of the last steps in this process, everything that's going to be changed. Again, if there's any direction, any attachments there. But from the implementation standpoint, we can create an implementation plan. This can be multiple steps. In our case, it's fairly simple, saying we need to redesign the brake disc and update the bill of materials. But as many steps as you need to address that change can be built out. These tasks are then assigned to users, and as you saw on my home screen, they will have access to them. They'll be associated to the objects that need to be changed, so they won't even have to search for them in the system. They can access them directly from the task. And once they complete a task, it kicks off the next step in that workflow. So here you can see that we actually have these in sequence, so one does need to be finished before the next one starts. You can also set date requirements and things like that for when you would want this all to be done. The last thing I'll note around change management for today is that, of course, you also have the ability to see what members are involved in this, who are reviewers, and who can do what. And to that idea, change management has often been something that's mostly done in engineering, but there could be other views that have information that could be helpful, especially when you get into things like manufacturing even. And that's where Navigate comes into play with Windchill. So THINGWORX Navigate is built off of our IoT platform THINGWORX, and it's meant to be a lightweight user interface for downstream users to be able to access information. Now, traditionally, this information might be from Windchill, but it can even be from other sources like ERP or really anything that can connect to the internet. because it's built off of THINGWORX, you can connect to those systems, pull information, and display it all from one simple user interface. But what's nice with the latest iteration of THINGWORX is that we've now also added the ability to be involved in these change processes. So we'll go ahead and see how that works from the Navigate side here. Now in Navigate, you can see that this is my home screen. I have some different apps here. These allow me to view parts, so I could look at design files, maybe some neutral files, PDF, whatever it would be. The drawing files, very useful for people, again, maybe in manufacturing if they just need to find a drawing. The ability to view and measure in 3D will open up that viewing tool that I've been showing earlier, or even to look at the part structure similar to the bill of materials. And of course, you can do the same type of thing searching for documents as well. But the one that I want to touch on today with its key being the change task. So I'll go ahead and open up the My Tasks application here, and it's going to bring me into My Tasks. So here we can see any tasks that have been assigned to me from any workflow from those workflows in Windchill. And with this, I can quickly at a glance see who all has started on this. Is someone maybe just waiting for me to finish it? Maybe I'm injured or sick or about to go on vacation, so I can't do one of these, so I need to reassign it to someone. Well, I can do that from here as well. I can give my reason why, and I can select anyone from that workflow that would be allowed in terms of the Windchill side. And I guess to note on that, inside of Navigate, for those of you who have never seen it before, it is going to respect your user privileges from Windchill. So if you don't have the rights to see an object in Windchill, you will not be able to see it in Navigate. So you don't have to worry about any change in permissions there. Now, if I was interested in actually working on one of these, I could just select the Conduct Online CRB review, and it's going to bring me into that review. You're going to see a lot of similar information to what we saw inside of Windchill, whether or not there's a cost and whether or not that cost is recurring, what the priority level is, what state it's currently in, as well as a description of what the problem is and what the proposed solution to that problem would be. As we saw earlier, at a glance, I can see who all has responded so far, but I can even look in more detail, look at some notes, any comments from them. So in this case, I can see that they're really interested in getting this done quickly. So I want to start reviewing this and being able to help. Well, I can look at any attachments that might be associated here. So I have this PDF maybe that I would need to read through and review. Well, I can do that quickly from here, get any information, and then start even looking at the actual affected objects. Similar to in Windchill, it recognizes these connections, and so it can push down all of the affected objects, and I can simply select on one to view more information about it. Now, when I selected on that, as I pointed out earlier, we had those part applications at the top of the screen. That's exactly where it has taken me. So this is the View Part Properties app, which just shows you any attribute data from Windchill about these parts. But while I'm here, I could look for any other information that I was interested in. If I wanted to get a drawing of this, I could, or any of the other design files and review those. I could also come over to the Structure tab and be able to look at the overall structure for this assembly. So anything about this that I might be interested in, I can quickly just go through here, review this information, and be able to kind of continue on with that review. You can see we also do get visualizations similar to in the Structure tab in Windchill, and we get that cross-highlighting capability. You also have the ability to look at some different views, and you can even save in some different states here. So here you can see, since I have a part selected, it just rotates the view around that. If I remove that, it'll do it for the entire assembly. You can also bring in some annotation sets like model-based definition information even, and have that be displayable from here. So you can really quickly interact with these, or even open them up in that viewing tool and be able to take measurements and annotations so that you can be clear with your intent going back and saying, yes, this is fine, or no, we need to make some more changes. And so as you've been seeing throughout here, the user interface on the Navigate side is fairly simple and very easy to use, and that's really the intent, is so that if you're someone who's not in the Windchill system all the time, then don't have to remember all the best practices. Be able to come here, do a simple search from almost a Google type search bar, and quickly find the information that you're looking for. Once you've reviewed all of that information, really be able to have impact in this process by giving those users the ability to say yes or no, there is, a problem, or yes, this is fine, put in some comments. And as they do that, then it will kick off the next step in that workflow from the Windchill side, which will end with someone reviewing all of that change notice and evaluating whether or not it's fully ready to be implemented, at which point, again, we could use the ability to promote those with the promotion requests, as well as set effectivity dates for when you want it to actually switch over to that. So even once you update it, does not mean you have to make it so that everyone sees that moment and that we all switch over. You can set effectivity dates or even effectivity ranges so that you can move and transition in your own time when you're ready, and really just make sure that that's a clean step for you. So that's really what I wanted to show around Navigate and that change management workflow, and how you can really bring in other people in the enterprise and give them capabilities to search for information, visualize it, and then be interactive from that change management perspective. One other thing I did want to talk about briefly today is project management. Windchill also gives you the capability to manage projects. So you can set milestones and goals, and you can have deliverables that are set against those, as well as dates that you want them. And you can assign those to people like the tasks from change management so that they'll see what they need to be doing. When they get a task, then they can go in, submit things for those milestones. At milestones, you can review all of the objects that have come through. You can also look at this in a more traditional Gantt chart style, and it does work with being able to upload from Microsoft Project. So if you build out a project in Microsoft Project, but then you want to tie it to all of your design information in your PLM tool, this will allow you to do that. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back off to the Barry Waymiller design team for any closing thoughts.
All right. Hey, thanks, Cody, for showing us some of the ways that a Windchill PLM builds on PDM functionality and adds value generation. We talk with potential PDM/PLM users regularly, and there's some concerns and questions that almost always come up. So I thought I'd share some of them with you today. We're too small for a PLM. We hear this from companies of all sizes. The fact is, as we've said before in this webinar, if you're a candidate for SolidWorks PDM Pro, then you're a good candidate for Windchill PLM. Today, your firm may not need or want all the additional capabilities that the PLM brings, so just implement what helps you meet your current desired business outcomes. Put in what works for you today. As time goes on and your business grows, your needs will change, but you won't have to upgrade to a PLM. You already have one. You're never too small for a PLM either. We have some PLM installations with less than 10 users, but they future-proof themselves with a PLM. What's another one we hear? Implementing a PDM or PLM will cause too much disruption to our business. Well, we get it. Change can be very scary to a lot of people. And while a solution may be technically brilliant, if the organization is not ready on go live, your PDM or PLM implementation will seriously disrupt your organization. So in this sense, if your organization is not ready, it doesn't matter if you selected a PDM or a PLM. So how do you get prepared? Design Group shares our experience from hundreds of new installations and upgrades to help get your organization ready for the new solution. Organizational readiness is a key part of our implementation plan. But to be honest, there will be some disruption. That's why you're adopting new technology to change how you're doing your business today. To make the transition smoother, Design Group offers remote help desk support to make sure your team members work efficiently. And as your implementation matures, we offer managed services so that the people maintaining your solution are experts on the software. Another way to minimize the impact of the change and the resulting disruption is to phase in functionality, starting with what helps meet the most pressing business needs today, and then add new capabilities as the organization adapts. This natural growth curve highlights, again, why starting with a PLM may be the best move for your firm. We need our solution to talk with other business systems. Cody was just showing us in THINGWORX Navigate, and he mentioned that it can connect with a lot of other systems, and it can. So Windchill, while some PDMs have limited ability to integrate with other business systems, Windchill PLM supports the common inter-application protocol. So your PLM can talk with your ERP, your configure price quote or CPQ solution, or other business enterprise systems, including quality management. Your customers can access the latest information on products to help them make configuration decisions. Your service team can use PLM to ensure that they have the right drawings for the versions that they encounter in the field. MES systems can ensure that production is supplied with the right drawings every time. And you may want to use your PLM to interface with your quality systems, perhaps storing IoT data from field installed products and then tracking that against the actual product itself. At some point, there will be an on-premise versus cloud talk. Not all PDMs and PLMs offer the option to be hosted either on-premise or in the cloud. And we could have an entire webinar on the pros and cons of each hosting strategy, so I won't go into the details here, but just know that Windchill PLM can support either hosting model. Now, there are two questions we can always count on. How long will it take and how much will it cost? And of course, the answer is always, it depends. But in general, we find that it takes about the same amount of time to implement the same functionality, whether it's SolidWorks PDM Pro or Windchill PLM. We usually estimate 6 to 10 weeks from the start of the project. Now, data migration times are dependent on the number of drawings and the quality of the drawings. A good reference point is 10,000 drawings. Assuming that the drawings and other documents associated with it are in good shape, migration can happen in as little as a week. However, if there are quality issues, migration time could take 3 or 4 weeks or even longer. So whether you're importing into SolidWorks PDM Pro or Windchill PLM, it's a great time to clean up those old drawings. And then finally, we usually quote about 1 week of on-site support for go live. Many people think a PLM is much more expensive than a PDM, but in reality, the costs are about the same to implement the same functionality. For core PDM functionality, irrespective of whether you're implementing a PDM or PLM, we ballpark a number between $50,000 and $75,000 for implementation services. Now, licensing costs will vary depending on the number of type of users you have, so it's challenging for us to give you today an order of magnitude number for software costs. I think the main takeaway here is that there's not a lot of difference in cost or time between implementing a PDM or a PLM to accomplish the same goals. So we've mentioned future-proofing before. Let's expand on that topic a little bit. Maybe one of the biggest differences between a PDM and a PLM is where they can take your firm. I realize this is a bit of an eye chart, but it highlights many of the functions a Windchill PLM that are available to your business from day one. While your company may grow beyond what a PDM can deliver, a Windchill PLM can grow with you without the disruption caused by migrating from new PDM. And PTC is continuing to add new functionality with modules specific for industries like medical device manufacturers. And PTC has a marketplace too, something like the Apple App Store, albeit not as slick, where PTC approved add-ins are available to enhance the out-of-the-box functionality of Windchill. Be sure to look for Design Group in the PTC Marketplace. We have some of our tools on the Marketplace today. So let's continue to explore the concept of what this can be in the future. There's a lot of talk in the market today about digital transformation. Companies are looking for new ways to leverage the sizable investments made in information and automation solutions. At Design Group and PTC, we talk about the digital thread, which we think of as the automated connection of your people, processes, and software solutions. For a manufacturer, Windchill is that digital thread, a one-stop application that enables smooth collaboration across business units and enterprise systems. With a PLM, you can design anywhere, build anywhere, service anywhere. Hey, thank you for your time today. Scott, I think I see some questions.
Yeah, we do, William. Thank you, William and Cody. That was great. As you shared, SolidWorks PDM Professional and Windchill PLM are both great products, but a PLM offers companies so much more, either now or in the future, for essentially the same cost. That makes for a great return on investment. So with that said, we do have some questions coming in. So let me take a look at those, and let me start off with. So I'm going to put them in a couple different categories. A lot of these are around ease of use and around compatibility. So let's start with ease of use. So the first one here are representations such as PDFs, searchable in Windchill Navigate. And there's an example. So for example, it will be helpful if non-engineers, such as like production operators, quality technicians, or buyers, can easily access SolidWorks drawing PDFs from Windchill.
Sure. That's certainly a capability. You can save those annotations or those publications inside of Windchill and associate them using the WT part. You can even have Windchill do some of that publishing for you if you don't want to do it manually. And then from the Navigate side, the first part app in that collection that I briefly showed allows you to see any associated design files. So anything like a PDF that would be tied to a SolidWorks part, they would be able to go in there and easily find that and access it.
So along the same lines, this other question is similar. So can representations of SolidWorks drawings be viewed by others, like a sales rep, for example, who do not have SolidWorks installed on their systems?
Yeah, so the tool that I showed earlier, the viewing tool, comes with the licenses. So anyone who has Navigate or Windchill will have access to that viewing tool, and it can open up all different kinds of drawings.
Great. Here's one. Can you demo how Windchill handles automation in updating SolidWorks drawing sheets? For example, if we made a change to a part number, it updates the information on the bill of materials on the drawing, or someone approves a drawing and their initials show up. So again, can you demonstrate how Windchill handles automation in updating SolidWorks drawings sheets?
So I don't know that I have anything set up to show that right this moment, but just to speak to that, I will say that we can do that. Whenever you bring something in like that, you can have, number one, the question of where you're getting the drawing number from, whether it's being generated by Windchill or by SolidWorks, and either way is fine, and it can take either one. Now, in terms of having like an initial or something show up on a drawing for approval saying that this is going to be released, we can do signature tracking against objects. So that could be made into part of your change process, or even just for tasks, where if you said that I want someone to be associated to this change that they made, you can have them sign off on those as they do it, so that you would have traceability into who did what. And if you're really interested in something like that, we can always have a follow-on discussion and do a deeper dive into Windchill so that we could show you some capabilities like that.
Yeah, no, good point. You're right. So we can certainly follow up on that question, and whoever asked it will be happy to demo it, outside of this webinar. So great, Cody. Thank you. So the last question that I have is around compatibility. Pretty straightforward. So what is the latest release of SolidWorks supported by Windchill?
The latest version, SolidWorks 2020, actually. So we try to keep up as they release new ones. We release new workgroup managers to match. So we are up with the latest versions of SolidWorks currently.
Fantastic. So this concludes today's webinar. Optimize product data management, PTC Windchill PLM, or SolidWorks PDM Professional. This session was recorded and it will be posted on the Barry Waymiller Design Group online channel. I'd like to thank our presenters for making this an informative webinar, and thanks to our audience for participating in today's session. I want to do a special shout out to Ajay Paul, who has really helped coordinate and orchestrate this seminar, this webinar. So great job, Ajay. We hope you found today's event valuable and that you will return for future PTC and Barry Waymiller Design Group hosted webinars. Thank you.